Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the latest edition of Miami Hurricanes Talk with Danny, presented by Lorraine Sports. And this week we're joined also by Paul from Scoop on the U. And our guest this week is Mick Tidrow. He is the play-by-play voice of the Ball State football Cardinal. I think he's only the third voice in the history of Ball State football. Am I correct in that, Mick?
Yes, you are. I appreciate you having me on the show as well. Maury Manning was here for 56 years. Joel Gadet was here for about a decade, and I took over the role. This is started my third year, so just the third ever in Ball State history, and it's a ultimate honor for me, especially as a Cardinals graduate. So,
Yes,
yeah,
one of the most famous Cardinals graduates. I think you know him very well. Gentleman by the name of David Letterman,
yeah,
1969.
we've heard about him a couple of times.
Yes, quite a bit, quite a bit. Um, you also see you worked for Stadium for a little while, then went to BEK Sports Network out of North Dakota. Explain a little bit to our audience what that network is about.
Yeah, for sure. So Beck Sports was a regional network out in North Dakota. We broadcast high school, collegiate sports, semi-pro, and pro sports as well. And our company actually owned an indoor football league team, and so we broadcasted their games as well, which is really fun because the indoor football league is such an exciting league. And through that partnership, we were able to work with Stadium as well. So really interesting experience, and had a great time out there for 2.5 years um, to spend out there right after I graduated with my master's degree from Ball State in 2020. So yeah, it was a great experience. My wife and I moved back to Indiana after that job opportunity, and super grateful for it.
Hey, great, great. Native of Petersburg, Utah. Where is Petersburg, Utah?
Yeah, so it's about 15 minutes away from Utah State University. It is an unincorporated town. There are no stoplights. There are no mail stations. There's nothing. Nothing out there. No gas stations. So
Wow.
we would always have to drive into town to go get our milk and eggs and our gas.
Yeah, you also are close up. But anyway, let's get to last week's game against Missouri State. Offense, look, I'm very impressed with Caden Samoza, 28 of 39, 262, four touchdowns, one pick. And he was six for six carries, 16 yards, one rushing touchdown. Tell us about Samoza and all the other guys like Braden, Sloan, Pickett, and then the rest of that offense.
Yeah, so Caden Simmons was awesome week one, and having some experiences last year that he had was instrumental in his growth, I think, from a maturation process. Because you look at what he did last year, his first career start being at the defending national champion Georgia Bulldogs house, came in second half against Kentucky week one, and then played a couple more games before taking that redshirt season. I think that those experiences helped him gain the knowledge, and then the off season was all about building that confidence and the rapport with the players. So to see that shine through on Saturday was awesome. I think that he made a lot of good decisions. The interception, was caught, bobbled, and then popped into the air. So it's hard to pin that, directly on Caden, of course. But I think the overall assessment of what Caden did was a very, very strong showing, and to account for 5 TDs in the first start of a redshirt freshman season is a really good start, regardless of if he played last year or not. To be able to do that against a team that really has a lot of good athletes. Like, they're moving to the FBS next year in Conference USA, and I contend to say I think Missouri State would compete in a lot of leagues right now, and they are a very good team. And took number 3 Montana to the brink in an FCS matchup a couple weeks ago. For them to be on Ball State's schedule, and Caden to play that well against a very athletic defense was impressive.
Hey,
And from a running back standpoint with Braden Sloan, his first game coming in and having almost 150 all-purpose yards was fantastic. He jumped off the page and kind of had the exclamation mark in that last drive for that touchdown to put it away. And he's just a patient runner. He's so fun to watch because he doesn't ever have like a overwhelming sense of panic or any issue. He waits, he finds the lane, and then attacks. And you mentioned Cam Pickett. I did his first ever collegiate game, and he took the spotlight and ran with it. So I think Cam Pickett was one of the highlights of the day as well. And on top of that, 4 receivers caught a touchdown pass, so it wasn't just one player making all the plays, and a lot of good talent got to be showcased on Saturday.
hey, Paul, you have a question for Mick here?
Yeah, Mick, Right now in college football, we just saw Northern Illinois knock off Notre Dame in South Bend. The beauty of college football is expect the unexpected. On any given Saturday, any team could win. Where do you see the edge where Ball State may be able to pull off a big win against, one of the hottest teams in America right now, the Miami Hurricanes?
That's a great question. It's no doubt Miami's playing some of the best ball in America. And I think the veteran aspect of the offensive line, returning 117 career starts, is something that can always be looked at with this Ball State team. That's a veteran group up front, a lot of experience since the day they walked in the door at college football. So I always point to that. That offensive line up there is very seasoned. They have a lot of different types of offensive linemen. So I think it all starts there. And that group has been very trusted the last few seasons. And I think it was great when Damon Kaler and Ethan Crow both came back. Like they were expected to graduate, be done with football, and they wanted to come back. And to have those two return really helps anchor that offensive line. So I think I would definitely go to that as the first sign.
Yeah, I look at that too. Look at the defense. I mean, 320 yards total defense last week. Keontae Newsom and Dee Snyder. I mean, two of your better players. And also 62 yards rushing. I mean, talk about your defense a little bit, Mick, if you can.
Yeah, you mentioned Keontae. He has been awesome as a leader for this team. He has jumped into that sphere and run with it. He's a very vocal, energized leader that gives that defense a lot of life. And I think the way that he operates as a leader is strong. Joey Stamler was a lot of the same at the linebacker position on Saturday. He had his first career interception and played a lot of really good defense side to side. He found a way to mitigate the Missouri State rushing attack. So I think that's one thing the defense did really well was make sure that the Missouri State rushing attack wasn't able to ever get going. And that defensive line, I think everybody was really interested to see how that would play out because it was such a new group, and they passed all the tests. I think from that standpoint, so really excited to see what the defense has for week two and the way that they can grow. And they had a few players that returned from last year with some starts, but a lot of it was new players in new places and some new faces. But Coach News talked about this as well. But George Udo, he was at Cincinnati, was at BYU as well for a couple seasons, and he made a special teams play that was absolutely dynamic to force a fumble. He was all over the place on defense as well. So I think you have a lot of different pieces that can be used in different ways on the defense.
Yeah, another thing, and I'll Scoop, you'll want to chime in. Please feel free to do that. How are they going to prepare for the trip to Miami Gardens to prepare for that heat and humidity and to deal with Cam Ward and the Miami offense? And how will Ball State prepare to deal with that physical defense that Lance Guidry is going to throw at them this week?
Yeah, I think from a preparation standpoint with the humidity, it does. I know this is different. Like the heat, the humidity in Miami is a little different, but it gets pretty humid in Indiana. So hopefully everybody's starting to, hydrate up properly and take care of your business that way. But it is a little bit different once you get to Miami, of course. And from a Cam Ward standpoint, I think Coach New kind of said it best. He said Cam Ward's making throws at this level that players that are playing on Sundays aren't making right now. And that seems to be true. And you turn on the tape, Cam Ward is a very good quarterback. So I think at the end of the day, just coming in with a game plan that could try to put some pressure on him. I think that the ultimate way to win a game like this is to be able to pressure the quarterback and find a way to get past the offensive line and force Cam Ward to, in some uncomfortable situations. But yeah, it's a tall task when you've got a quarterback that's playing that well.
Scoop, you want to chime in? Go ahead, Scoop.
Mick, what happened last week against Missouri State? There was a situation that occurred where there was one player from Ball State on the field. Seems like Missouri State took advantage of that situation. I was a little bit confused. I've never seen anything like it before. You know what went on? I mean, do you think the touchdown should have stood? I mean, what were your thoughts about the whole fiasco? Because I've never seen that in my life.
That is a great question. I'm glad you asked it. I've never seen anything like that either. And I didn't really know until after the game what had happened. But from what it sounds like, the conversation, from what it sounds like, is the official spot of the ball told Missouri State, but didn't tell Ball State. So then since Ball State had so many guys that were on Missouri State's side of and will go on and continue playing. That's what was relayed to me. And I never seen that before either, because they threw the touchdown and they had their celebration going on, and then it gets pulled back because we all know is offside encroachment. With an offside, usually it's a free play, and you have a chance to go score, and that's what Missouri State did. So we were all kind of confused by what happened there.
Yeah, anything want to add something else like from a Miami perspective this week, Scoop?
Uh, yeah, Mick, I mean, who should we? I mean, you've mentioned some names. For Miami Hurricanes fans, what matchups do you think we should be looking at Ball State wise? What positions? Who do you think can stand out on Ball State side and make some noise on the field?
Yeah, I think Tanner Koziel is always somebody that jumps off the page. 6'7", he's tight end, who's a freshman All-American, and he's somebody that is always tough to stop. And he proved that against Missouri State on Saturday. Just his ability to run different types of routes and make different kinds of plays that a lot of tight ends can't make. So he's always a treat to watch, and really happy that he decided to come back and be a Ball State Cardinal.
Yeah, I mean that's going to be a good matchup. That we know, Scoop, as you know, we've had issues with tight ends over the years.
Oh yeah,
Had
oh
the
yeah. I
issues
mean,
there,
Danny,
but
I'm thinking of a lot of games right now. Okay, with tight ends.
yes, that has been an issue with
Especially
us.
G5 programs. We've had
Yes,
a lot of issues. So, Mick, don't be surprised if Ball State's in it. Do not be surprised. I think you never know what could happen on a Saturday in college football.
yes, that's all as we found last week with Northern Illinois.
Yeah, that was pretty wild that Northern Illinois pulled that off. But it was cool to listen to a lot of teams and players in the MAC just voicing their support for Northern Illinois and saying, "Yeah, this is good for the conference." And it was pretty epic ending that game.
Mick, keys to give. Okay, we talk about keys to the game. What are the keys for a Ball State upset on Saturday?
I think a lot of it starts in the run game. I mean, we talk about Cam Ward being as dynamic as he is, but that run game usually helps set up what any team is going to do. So I think I mean, let's see, 6 times in the last 13 games, Ball State has limited teams to under 100 yards rushing. So I think if you look at that, that could be a key for this game right off the top. And also just settling in early, finding a way to get some points on the first couple of drives, being able to settle in from a quarterback standpoint, from an offensive line standpoint, like we talked about. I think those are the two biggest keys: settle in early and find a way to hold them under 100 rushing yards.
Yeah, Scoop, if you want to add something to that?
Mick, definitely it's going to be a really good matchup come Saturday. I'd love to hear what was the preview of Ball State going into the season and the expected kind of win-loss prediction.
Yeah, so the MAC preseason poll had Ball State picked ninth, but I think as the coaching staff and some of the players were saying, like, they don't know who's in our room. And we've kind of seen that kind of develop throughout the year. And that's been one of the themes from players and staff of like, hey, we're confident with who we have. We're confident with what the group that we have. So that was the preseason outlook from a conference-wide standpoint. And a lot of the conversations around the preseason poll stem from looking at last year and then having it be pretty close to what it was last year and how it ended. So I mean, we look at that and we see a lot of similarities. But yeah, I think it was an outlook of pick ninth, but a lot of people haven't seen what Ball State has, and there's a lot of new faces, and I think that can sometimes be a factor in preseason polls because we don't know how X, Y, or Z player is going to play in this conference, but we've seen players already transfer in that weren't on the team last year that have made a big impact, like Miles Norwood, George Udo, players like that have come in and made this team very fun to watch.
Yeah,
Danny,
go ahead, Scoop. Go ahead.
I was going to say, if we limit the penalties, we keep Ball State under 100 rushing yards, they can have success with the tight ends. This should be a feasible game to win. I think the spread right now is in that 36-point margin range, but that's going to be the keys for Miami, Danny.
Yes.
Limit the penalties, keep them under 100 rushing yards.
Yeah, that was
Because
a
if
big issue last
they're going to
week.
be able to air it out, I'll give them 200 passing yards. But if we can get under that, especially the home run plays, Danny, if we can limit that number for Ball State, like we saw against Florida, um, they had some big home run plays. If we can limit that against Ball State, get them under 100 rushing yards, under 200 passing yards, limit the penalties, we should have a lot of success come Saturday.
Absolutely, I have to agree with that. Listen, Ball State, that's gonna be a team. Listen, they're gonna come in scrappy. They have nothing to lose. Am I right, Mick? They have nothing to lose.
Yeah, that's kind of how it is every Saturday, right? You have nothing to lose, and there's an opportunity for Ball State to go do something that would be a very big boost to the program. And I think you look at teams like NIU that have done it. Ball State was, they played Kentucky and Georgia last year, and a lot of those guys, especially on offense, are coming back, so they know what that type of environment is like. And we talked about the offensive line having some of that veteran presence. That offensive line's played in these games, so that communication from a noise standpoint, they'll know how to work with that.
Yeah, I know, Mick. You're calling the game, so you can't give a prediction. Paul, give me a prediction for Saturday, and I'll give you mine.
Danny, I think we're going to see first quarter, it's going to be a close game. Second quarter, I think Miami's going to take off with that 17 to 10 point lead going into halftime. And then I think in the second half, it separates longer. I think you're looking at that 34-14, 41-17 point range type of game. I think it's going to be a little bit of a fight in the first half, and then second half, you know, we'll make our second half adjustments. We'll take care of business offensively. But I will say this: if Ball State does turn over the ball a lot and lets Miami's offense on the field and have a heavy amount of time of possession, like we saw against the Florida Gators, then that's where the game really spreads out and Miami has the heavy edge. So Ball State needs to create turnovers in the sense of picking off Cam Ward, forcing fumbles, and Miami needs to create turnovers on their own to get their offense back on the field. I
Mhm.
think that's where Miami's going to be really successful in this game.
Yeah, I think two things also. Ball State last week ran 80 plays, and they had a time of possession for 38 minutes, almost 39 minutes. We got to limit that. We got to make sure we score quickly and we just take care of business. Let's not get anybody hurt. I'm not going to overlook Ball State because we know we have a big one next week here in Tampa against a very dangerous USF team, but we can't overlook Ball State. And I don't think Mario Cristobal, our coach, will not allow that. I think Miami wins comfortably, and I think Miami wins, I say 38 4, I say 38 to 14 Canes win. I'm going to say right around that ballpark. Any final thoughts you want to add before we go, gentlemen?
No, I really
You,
appreciate you guys having me on. Like, I'm excited to make my first trip to Miami, so it'll be fun to get down there and experience Hard Rock Stadium and everything down there. So, really appreciate you guys having me on the show,
Thank
and
you.
look forward to Saturday.
Yeah, great, Mick. Thanks for coming on. Safe trip down to South Florida. Paul, thank you for coming on. And we'll do this again down the road. Safe travels, gentlemen. Safe travels to Miami, Mick.
Thank you, I appreciate it. Go Cards.
Okay.
thank you, Danny.